going to show you how to make these right angle weave crystal earrings, and we'll make a little wire attachment. Because of the shape they are, you really can't add a ear wire without doing a little finagling with wire here. So this is what we're going to do. This was my mom's idea. She thought it would be really pretty just to have a pair of crystal earrings that were straight down, rectangular, really long, and just kind of flowing. And so this is what I came up with for that, and they really are very pretty. It's not real hard to do, and I thought you might enjoy them since I made them for her, but I think that everybody might like to make a pair. So anyway, let's get started. Okay, so for this project you are going to need a 4mm Bicone crystal. This is a Swarovski, and it is a clear, and it's a zillion. Then you will need an 11-0 seed bead, or some 11-0 seed beads actually, and this is a Toho, and it is silver-lined crystal. You will need 2 pieces of wire. This is 20 gauge art wire, and it is soft art wire. You will need about 2 inches of it, and then you will need 2 2-inch pieces of it, and then you will need 2 eye pins. Eye pins are just a piece of wire with a loop on the end. Now this is half hard wire, so that's why I've chosen to use an eye pin instead of making one of my own with wire. So those that don't know what they are, that's what they are. Just a piece of wire with a loop at the top. Then you will need, and you want them to be fairly long, at least 2 inches or close to 2 inches. You'll be cutting it down, but you want them to be pretty long to start with. Then you need 2 pieces, or not 2 pieces, 2 ear wires, and this is a lever back, and they are sterling silver coated. And then you will need, or plated, I guess, and then you will need 2 jump rings. And mine are 3mm in diameter. You will need them to be rather small. You don't want big ones. So 3mm is about right. You will need a size 10 beading needle. I am using a John James size 10 English beading needle. You will need 8-pound Fireline, and you will need to start with a full wingspan of 8-pound Fireline. You will then need wire cutters and cutters. You will need flat nose and chain nose pliers, or 2 chain nose, 2 flat nose, it doesn't matter, just 2 pairs of pliers. And then a Sharpie would be helpful, not necessary, but helpful. A lighter, also not necessary, but helpful. And go ahead and put a full wingspan onto your beading needle, and we will get this party started. Okay, let's get this bad boy started. What we're going to do is we're just going to do right angle weave, basically. That's all these earrings are. Right angle weave is fairly simple. Once you have it mastered, it's really easy, but it can confuse a lot of people who haven't done it before. So I'm going to show you as simply as I can how to do it. Now we're just going to put 4 crystals onto our needle, and we're going to bring it down to the end of our thread. You don't have to leave a long tail, just enough to keep your beads from slipping, and then sew back through all 4 of the beads. Hold on to your beads and your tail, and pull your thread through. And then that's what you should have, just like that. Now I'm going to move some of my stuff out of the way here. Now I'm going to sew back through this entire unit. I don't really want to tie a knot because I don't want it to get in the way of my beads, so I'm just going to sew all the way around this entire unit again to secure it. And let's back up just a little. And then of course sew all the way past your tail. So I'm just going to sew until I get up past it. This is where my tail is, so I'm just going to sew all the way over until I'm in this bead right here and here. And that's our first unit. And we want to make sure we have really good tension on all of these. We want these to be tightly sewn together. In our first strip here, we can make sure of that by sewing through them twice. So all you'll want to do now is we're going to begin right angle weave. With right angle weave, there will be 4 beads in each unit. So we're going to share a bead from the first unit, so we will need 3 beads to make the second unit because we will count the bead we're sharing as 1. So we'll pick up 3 beads. We're coming out of this side of our bead. Our thread is coming out. We're going to go into the opposite side of the bead and then just pull our thread through like this. Now we have 2 units. I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to sew through this new unit all the way around, just because I want this first strip to be very secure. So I'm just going to sew all the way around my entire unit. And then I'm going to sew up to the next top bead so that I can start my next unit. So it will be this bead right here. And, oops, pulled my needle out. Sew through here. Just like this. Now we're going to do another unit. Now this should be pretty stable. We should only have to sew halfway through to get back to our top to keep these pretty stable, as long as you keep really good tension on it. So you're coming out of this side. We're going to go into the opposite side. We're going to have 3 beads on our needle because we're sharing our 4th one, and we're going to pull. Now we need to get back to this bead on the top here, so I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to sew to the top bead. I'm going to squeeze the beads together with my fingers and pull my thread nicely and tightly so that I have a real nice tight unit like this. Then I'm going to continue picking up 3 beads. Coming out of this side, I'm going to go into the opposite side and pull my beads up tight. Turn it over. The only reason I turn it over is so it's more accessible to my right hand. Squeeze and pull your thread tight, like this. And we'll do one more unit. Pick up 3 beads. Coming out of this side, go into this side. Pull your beads up tight, turn it over, sew up to the top bead, making sure that you keep a really good tension on your beads. Make sure they're nice and tight together. Just like that. Now I have 4 units, or actually 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You'll count the little box in the center, and that will tell you how many units you have. You're going to want to make 12 units. Or you can just count the side bead here. It might be a little bit easier. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So continue doing this until you have 12 units, and we'll be back. Okay, so I have my 12 units. I'm just going to count the end beads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now, I'm coming out of the bottom bead right here from my last unit. I want to move up this way and make another full strip attached to this one. So what I need to do in order to do that is I'm coming out of this bead right here on the bottom. I'm going to sew into this bead, and now this bead on the side will be the bead that I'm going to share in my next unit. So I'll sew and pull my thread through, and then I'm going to pick up 3 beads onto my needle, and I'm coming out of this end of this bead right here. I'm going to go into the opposite end, and I'm going to pull my thread through. Now on this one, whoops, don't go into the top bead there. That's easy to do, to slide your needle up into the bead above it. You don't want to do that. You just want to come into the bead you're attaching to. Then with this one, I'm going to reinforce it because it's the beginning of my next row and it's kind of loose, so I'm just going to sew back through all of the beads, including the one I'm attaching to. Just go around the entire unit. Up through the one that I was attaching to. Now, here is where you will begin your next unit. We will use these 2 beads. Now you can see we're going to be using 2 beads because each unit we build, there will be a bead on the wall already established here, and there will be a bead on the bottom from the new unit we put on. And we will use those 2 beads in combination with 2 more to make our next unit. So in order to do that, I'm coming out of this bead here. I don't want to come straight down into this bead because if I do, I'll have a thread between the beads and I don't want that. So I'm going to go into this bottom bead right here, and then I am ready to add 2 more beads. I'll need a bead here, and then I'll attach to this one and come back through this one. So we will pick up 2 beads because we've got 2 beads on our unit already that we're going to use. So now all we need are 2. So we're going to come up through this bead here, pull through, and now we need to come into the bead already on the unit here, on the top, on the last unit we made. And then we need to sew down to this bead so we can use this bead and this bead in our next unit. So now I am going to sew down this one here. Then I'm going to sew into the bottom bead of the newest unit I just made. Sew into it. And I just kind of pulled everything loose, so I'm just going to tighten it back up. And then you're going to sew into the side bead in the first row of units you made here, so that you will use this bead and this bead with 2 others to make your unit. So you'll just make a circle here. So you will pick up 2 more beads. You'll come into the bottom bead of the newest unit you made and pull. Then you will need to attach to the bead on the wall here of the first strip of units. And then you will need to position yourself down into this bottom bead here so that you are in position for your next beads. So now we will add 2 beads here. So you'll just look at it and see where you need to add your new beads. If you're in one of these beads on the side and you need to get over to the top, then you have to sew to the top so that you can add your other 2 beads. So now we're going to use this bead and this bead to share. So we need to add 2 beads. We're going to come into the bead on the side here and pull. Then we're going to sew through the bead on the top here. Or for you, I guess it would be bottom the way you're looking at it. And then down into the side bead. Reestablish our positioning. We want to get into this bottom bead because we're always going to use the bottom bead and the side bead. So we're going to pick up this one. Since we're right here, we're going to pick up the side bead. And we're just going to continue building all the way down the strip this way. We're going to pick up 2 beads. And we're going to come through this bead here. Pull them tight. And then we need to sew down into this bead here. I'm going to turn it slightly. Sew into my bottom bead. And now I'm in position for my next unit. I'll do 1 more and then we'll finish the entire row and we'll be back. So let's pick up 2 beads go into the side bead. Since we're coming out here, we're going to go into this bead here to finish out our unit. We will sew through this bead on, which would have been the bottom or the top from where you're looking at it, however you want to see it, and then come down into the side. We've got to get back into this bead here to start our next unit. Now see, it pulled a little loose when I did that, so I'm going to grab a hold of this and pull in the direction of my work so that it tightens it back up, just like that. Then I'm going to sew into, since I'm coming out here and I need to add 2 beads here, I'm going to sew down into this bead here and pull my thread through. And now everything's tightened up and I can continue making my units. So go ahead and finish your entire strip and we'll be back. Okay, so I've worked my way all the way down on my new row here, and I'm going to get rid of my tail now because I need to make my very last unit here. So I'm going to cut my tail. I'm going to leave it a little long, but I'm not going to melt it yet because I don't want it to blob up through my bead because I need to sew through it again. So I'm just going to cut that there. I'm going to come up through, I'm coming out of this bead here. I'm going to come up through the bottom bead here. And I added 3. I don't want to add 3. So I'm going to back out here. And take one of these off. Only need 2 because there's 2 on the unit there. So sometimes I get a little crazy and pick up 3. Come through the bottom bead here. And then through the connecting bead here. I'm going to turn it over. And I'm going to come back up through this bead here in order to make my next row. So what I'm going to do now is I'll go ahead and melt that a little bit, get rid of it. I don't want to touch my other ones. I left it a little long, but that's okay. I can trim it down. Okay, so we have finished our last unit on our second row, and we're going to make another row. So now we need to be coming out of the side bead. So sew around until, because I went this way, until you're coming out of this side bead right here. Now pick up 3 beads. When you start a new row, you need 3 beads because you're only sharing 1. So pick up 3 beads, come through the bottom, turn it over, and sew through all of them. You want to secure this one since it's a new unit, a new row. So we're going to sew through the entire thing as we have done before. Just sew all the way around all of these beads, including the connecting bead on your unit here. And then we need to get to this bead here to start our row, so our next unit. So go ahead and sew until you get to that bead. So here I'm coming through this one right here. Now you'll notice I'm not trying to pick up 2 beads at a time. In right angle weave, if you do that, you can make your units not look quite as nice. You want them to lay at perfect right angles, hence the name. So if you sew through one at a time, you get a prettier result. So now I'm coming out of this bead here. I'm going to share this bead and this bead. I'm going to come into, exiting here, I'm going to come into this bead here. And now I'm going to sew down into this bead and start my new unit down here. So I'm going to sew here, and then I'm going to sew into this one. I'm going to pull, make sure everything's tight, and then I need to put 2 more beads on and then connect from here into this one. So pick up 2, you're exiting here, come into the one on your previous row, pull, go into the one on the unit you just made previously, your very last unit. And now you're coming out here and you need to get down here. So you're going to sew down into this one, down into this one. Now this bead is going to be a part of your next unit, so you need to sew into this one. And now you're ready to add your 2 beads. Pick up 2 beads. And again, sew around. The bead in the previous unit, the bead in the previous row, and then down into the bead in your new unit. And now you are ready to make your next unit. Go ahead and finish out your row. When we get to the end of the row and need to turn around and start again, we'll be back. Okay, so now I'm ready to do my last row. So my very last unit, I mean. So I'm coming out of the bottom here. I'm going to go into the side here. I have 2 beads onto my thread, and I'm going to pull them down, then sew through my unit. Now we want to start from this bead over here. So we need to sew to this bead here, just like that. And we will start our new row, just like we have been doing all along. Okay, so we are exiting this little bead right here, and after sewing around to get in position for our new unit. So we start a new unit, so this time we'll pick up 3 beads onto our needle, and we're coming out of this side, we're going to go into this side. And now we are going to sew all the way around this entire unit because it's a new one. So we want to establish a good base here. So we're going to sew all the way around this entire unit. And then I need to work my way into this bead so that I am in position to add my next unit. So this bead and this bead will be in my next unit, so I need to add 2 here. So I'll pick up 2 now, and I will work into those 2. Then I need to position my thread here so that I can start my next unit. So I'm going to go here, and then I'm going to go here. And now I need to get into this bead because I will use this bead and this bead, always the bottom or top bead, whichever way you're looking at it here. And then this bead on the wall. We're always going to include them, so no matter where your thread is, you know you have to be positioned to include those 2. So 2 more. And we'll sew through to connect this one, and then sew through to the bottom, and then we'll add 2 more beads, connect these 2, and move on down our row and make another entire row, and then we'll be back. Okay, so I have finished my entire row except for the very last unit. So let's do the very last unit. I'm coming out of this bead right here. I'm going to pick up 2 beads onto my needle, and I'm going to go from this bead where I'm exiting into this one and finish up my unit here. I'm going to sew all the way around it since it's an end unit. And then we're going to put these little dangle things on the bottom. That's where you use your 11 O's. And it's hard, this is a little tricky because you can't always find the path to do this in. So what I'm going to do is you'll have to come down through these 3 beads here. If you can see that, I'll show you. In order to do your dangles, you have to come through this one, and this one, and you have to come through downwards. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew up through this bead here to secure my unit, and then I'm going to sew over into my next unit. Now I'm not crossing my thread path. That's what makes this tricky, is you have to follow your thread path. It always has to go in a circle of each unit. So we're going to go into this one, and then we're going to go down into this one. And we're going to add, I wonder if I can get around. No, so we're going to go down into this one. I had to do this before. I had to add the middle one first because it was the only one that I had a clear path to, and then I had to kind of finagle my way around to get the other two. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up an 11/0 seed bead, a Bicone crystal, an 11/0 seed bead, and I'm going to drop them down to my work just like this. And then I'm going to go around the 11/0 up into the Bicone crystal and the 11/0 on top, and the crystal we're coming out of just like this, and pull, and that gives a nice little finished end here. And we can sew over this way or over this way. Either way, we're going to have to sew all the way around to get back over. So I'm going to go here into my very next unit, and then down into the bead facing the end here, right here, and I'm going to pick up an 11/0 seed bead, a Bicone crystal, an 11/0 seed bead, and I lied. I said you'd need 6 seed beads. You need 6 per unit, so you'll need 12. And, or per earring, you'll need 6, so you need 12 seed beads in total. Now we're going to go around the 11/0 through the Bicone crystal and back up through the crystal that we're exiting here, and pull. Now I need to sew over and try to find a path to get to this one. So I can only go this way, then I can go, let's see, this way. It's a little tricky, so I'm going to go into this bead here, and then I'm going to go into this one here, then I'm going to go into the bottom one here, I'm going to sew up into this bead right here. Now, of course, I'm going the wrong direction to make my dangle. So I'm going to grab this thread bridge right here, and I'm going to do this carefully so that I don't bunch my work. And I'm going to just make a little tiny half-hitch knot so that I can turn myself around and come down into this bead. I'll be attached to the thread so that I can come down and it won't pull back through, just like this. Now, I'm going to pick up an 11/0 seed bead, a Bicone crystal, and an 11/0 seed bead. Drop it down, go around the 11/0, up through the crystal, up through the 11/0, and up through the bead that you just came through. Hey.
What?
What did you do that for?
Why didn't I do that is the real question.
Hey, my son is throwing lotion at me, see? Oops, that's probably copyright. I don't know.
I don't think anyone's going to care.
Does anyone care?
I don't think anyone's going to copyright strike you because you had a bottle of lotion over there.
Okay, fine. Anyway, that's my son's appearance for the day. So, now we have our little dangles, and we've come up through this crystal. So now we're just going to sew to the edge here. And then we're going to grab a knot on the end. My thread is getting really short. Grab a little knot right here, just like that, and then sew back up and then through your work a little bit. Now I'm going to cut my thread right here. So I'll just leave a little bit extra. And then I'll melt that down so that it seals it up and it won't slip out of the beads. Just like that. And let me back off a little bit. And this is what the crystal part of the earring looks like. And now we will begin to make the top of our earring to attach it. So we're going to make the connection for our ear wire here. Not connection, connection. I can't seem to talk today. We're going to slide it through, just like this, through the 4 top crystals. Then we're going to turn it over here. Then we're going to take our round nose pliers, which I neglected to tell you we need in the beginning of the video, but we need these. And we are just going to bend the wire up to the top of the earring. And then we're going to cut enough for a loop here. And then we're going to take our pliers and we're going to start to turn a loop. After you've turned your loop, you'll need to straighten it out. Make sure it's the same as the other side. So what I need to do is lay the earring down and just kind of straighten down. Just make sure that they're basically in the same place here, which they want to turn, so it's hard to do sometimes. There. Now you can see that I have 2 little loops on either side here. Now we're going to make the little connection that will connect to that connection. So I'm going to take our 2-inch piece of wire and we're going to guess about the middle here. And then we're going to bend it in half over our pliers here, like this, and then continue to bend it until you can make a little loop, like this. Then I'm going to set it with my straight nose here. Then I'm going to grab my other earring. Since I already made one, I want to kind of make sure I have the same slope on the arms here, and I do. And then I'm going to take my Sharpie. I'm going to lay it where my loops are lay this where my loops are. And then I'm going to mark it. Just a little bit. And then take my flat nose pliers and I'm going to bend this up. Now this is really soft wire, so the whole thing wants to bend instead of just where I want it to. And then I'm going to do the same on this side. Bend it up. And then back out a little bit because I cannot stay in frame while I'm doing this. This is what you should have, something that looks like this. And I'm going to kind of wipe my marker off if I can. Yeah, I won't worry about that right now. And then I'm going to shorten these just a little bit on either end. And then I'm going to roll these down so that I can make my hook down into the earring. So I'm going to hold this up like this, grab a hold of it, and start to turn. And the bad part with this is my wire is so soft. It really wants to bend. So I'm just going to kind of straighten it. And then that is what I have. I'll go to this side. And I'm going to do the same thing, just start to bend down. And roll my wire around into a loop. And then I'm going to straighten it out. This is what I have. Then I'm going to line it up with the loops on my earring and get into frame a little bit better. And I'm going to take my little 3mm jump rings and open them from side to side, like this. Then I'm going to line my wire up here, put this jump ring on that, and then put it through my loop I just made. And then I'm going to close the jump ring. Then I'm going to do that on the other side too. Open my jump ring, if I can do it. And same thing. And then close my jump ring. And this is what we have. Then we're going to pick up an ear wire, the lever back. We're going to open the loop on the lever back. We're going to slide it onto the loop on the ear wire, or on the earring, and close it. And there you have it. And there's the pair. Let you see what these look like. These are really long. You can always shorten the number of units if you don't want them quite this long. But that was the main goal in this, is to make them really long and glamorous. And they are really very pretty. So that's what they look like. I hope that you like this tutorial, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Okay, for this project, you are going to need 230 Bicone crystals. These are 4mm. They're Swarovski clear Bicone crystals. Let's do that again. Yeah. Okay, so for this project, you will need 4mm round. No, not round either. Oh, God. Okay, so now I can't do it. For this project, you will need 4mm Bicone Crystals. This is a Swarovski, and it is something, something, something. Oh, I suck today. Okay, for this project, you are going to need a 4mm Bicone crystal. This is a Swarovski, and it is... Blah, it's something. I don't know what it is. Can you tell me what it is? Because I can't know. Okay, for this project, you will need 230 4mm Bicone crystals. I am using a Swarovski Zillion, and it is clear. Then you will need an 11O seed bead. You only need about 6 of them. I have a few more out. These are silver lined Toho 11O seed beads, and you'll need, like I said, about 6 of those. You will also need 2 pieces of beading wire, or not beading wire, but like art wire or sterling silver. This is just not working.